He slapped her across the face in front of the whole school, thinking she was just another quiet black girl. What he didn't know. She was a deadly martial artist, and that mistake would change everything. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Westfield High parking lot, the kind of ordinary end to an ordinary school day when most students had already drifted home. A few lingered, chatting beside their cars or scrolling through their phones, too distracted to notice what was about to unfold. Maya Johnson walked alone, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her steps measured and quiet. She kept her eyes forward, trained on the faded Honda her mother had lent her for the week. She had almost reached it when a voice cut across the asphalt. "Well, look who we've got here. Our exotic new transfer." Derek Mitchell, captain of the lacrosse team, stepped out from between two trucks with his usual entourage at his back. His sandy hair caught the last of the light, his grin wide and practiced, the kind of grin that had convinced teachers and parents he was a golden boy. Maya stopped, her hand tightening on her backpack strap. Derek closed the distance, his friends fanning out like bodyguards. "You know, in this town we've got traditions. Values. The kind that built this school. My family's been part of it since kindergarten." He gestured around like the cracked asphalt and dented cars were his kingdom. "And then you show up from the big city, thinking you're too good for all that. Maybe you need a proper welcome." One of his friends snickered, "She's not so tough. Bet she doesn't even know how things work here." Maya's jaw clenched, but her voice was steady. "I know exactly how things work. You think you own this place because of your name. You don't own me." The word seemed to amuse Derek more than anger him. He stepped closer, the smirk never leaving his face. "Feisty. I like that. But here's the thing, sweetheart. Around here, respect isn't given. It's taken." He leaned in, his eyes sweeping over her in a way that made her skin crawl. The circle of boys closed tighter, their laughter ringing sharp in the air. For a moment the lot grew still, the quiet hum of engines fading as a few students turned to watch, sensing drama. Derek lifted his hand as if to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, his voice dropping into that mock-gentle tone he thought was charming. "So let's make this official." The movement came faster than anyone expected. A sharp crack echoed through the lot as his palm met her cheek. The sound seemed to hang in the air, louder than the crows calling from the trees, louder than the breath that caught in the throats of the onlookers. Maya staggered half a step from the impact, her head whipping to the side. Derek's friends erupted into laughter, their voices bouncing off the rows of cars. Derek himself stood tall, satisfied, like he had just stamped his claim in front of witnesses. "That's your welcome to Westfield," he said, his words dripping with mock sweetness. Gasps rippled through the few students watching. Some instinctively raised their phones, too late to catch the slap but quick enough to record the aftermath. Everyone seemed to expect Maya to lash out, to scream, to crumble. Instead, she straightened slowly, her breath controlled, her hand rising only to brush the sting from her face. When her eyes met Derek's again, there was no tear, no pleading, no trace of fear. Only a quiet coldness, sharp enough to cut through the noise around them. The laughter faltered for a heartbeat as Derek registered the look. It wasn't submission. It wasn't shock. It was something harder, older, something he didn't recognize in a girl he thought was weak. Maya adjusted her backpack, her silence louder than any outburst. The parking lot seemed to hold its breath. Derek forced another laugh to mask the unease prickling at the back of his neck. He waved his friends on, pretending the moment was exactly what he'd planned. "Come on, guys. She'll learn." They moved away, their chuckles echoing, but more hollow now, more forced. Maya stood alone beside her car, cheeks still burning, eyes unblinking. She had not struck back. Not yet. But anyone watching closely could see it in her posture, in the steel of her gaze. This was not the reaction of a girl broken. This was the silence of someone biding her time, and in that silence lay the promise of something Derek Mitchell had never faced before. The next morning the hallways of Westfield stretched out like a polished labyrinth, lockers gleaming in the school colors, banners from last year's championships hanging overhead like reminders of who really ran this place. Students clustered in groups that seemed to have been carved into stone years ago, eyes flicking toward Maya with the kind of casual curiosity reserved for outsiders who wouldn't matter for long. She kept her step steady, her backpack light on one shoulder, her gaze sharp. She had learned long ago that the first week in a new school was about reading terrain, measuring the fault lines, figuring out who controlled which corners. Westfield made it obvious in minutes. Derek Mitchell leaned against the lockers as if they had been built to hold him up, 3 boys flanking him, each mirroring his smirk with a slightly cheaper version. "There she is," he announced loud enough to silence nearby chatter. "Our new city girl." He pushed off the lockers and fell into step beside her. "How'd you sleep? Dream about me?" His friends laughed on cue. Maya didn't look at him. "Move." Derek clutched his chest as if wounded. "Cold. I was trying to be welcoming. Not everyone here gets the pleasure of my attention." One of his friends, a stocky boy with acne scars, added, "Most people would kill for it." The circle tightened. Students moving down the hallway gave them a wide berth, slipping past without a word. Maya could feel it, the invisible wall. People saw what was happening, they knew the script, but no one intended to interfere. Derek thrived on it. He shifted closer, his voice dropping into that slick imitation of charm. "You know, being new can be rough. But stick with me, and you'll never have to worry. I can introduce you to people who matter." He emphasized the word as if he held the keys to the kingdom. Maya's jaw tightened. "I don't want introductions. I just want to get to class." He blocked her path with casual ease. "That's not how Westfield works. This place has values, traditions. My family practically built this school. You walk these halls because the Mitchells paid for them." His friends snickered, one chiming in, "Better show some respect." Maya looked around. Dozens of students were watching but no one spoke. Heads dipped, eyes slid away. It was like being surrounded by ghosts. Derek leaned in closer, so near she could smell the cologne meant to mask locker room sweat. "You don't get it, do you? Around here, there are 2 kinds of people. Those who follow the rules, and those who get crushed by them. Which one do you want to be?" His friends shifted their weight, their shoulders creating a living wall that funneled her toward him. The hallway noise dulled, every sound swallowed by the tension hanging between them. For a long moment Maya said nothing. Then she stepped sideways, slipping past the shoulder of the tallest boy. The crowd seemed to exhale as she walked away without raising her voice. Derek called after her, still smiling. "Feisty. I like that. But don't mistake surviving day 1 for winning. This place remembers who belongs." At lunch the cafeteria was a stage, and Derek made sure to use it. He dropped his tray across from Maya's, his friends filling in around her before she could stand. "You don't have to eat alone," he said brightly, as if they were the picture of friendliness. "I could show you around, let you in on the good spots." Maya kept her eyes on her food. "I'm fine." Derek laughed. "Fine. You're sitting by yourself while the whole school watches. Doesn't look fine to me." He leaned closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "This could be easier. All you have to do is stop fighting me." One of his friends added, "She'll come around." "They always do." Maya pushed her tray back, ready to leave, but Derek's words froze her in place. "My dad's on the school board. 15 years. You think anyone's going to believe some angry transfer student over a Mitchell? You think anyone here is going to help you?" He leaned back, spreading his arms wide as if the cafeteria itself were proof. "This is my house. You can play nice, or you can find out how quickly outsiders get crushed." For the first time, his smile didn't look like high school bravado. It looked like certainty. He wasn't bluffing, and he wanted her to know it. Around them the chatter resumed, students pretending not to see the trap closing in. Maya stood, gathered her tray, and walked away in silence. But inside, the tension hardened into something sharper. Derek thought he had shown her the rules. What he didn't understand was that Maya Johnson had spent her whole life learning how to rewrite them. By the third day at Westfield the game had shifted. Derek no longer bothered to hide his attention. He was waiting by her locker in the morning, leaning against the metal door as if he owned it. "Morning, beautiful," he said, drawing out the words loud enough for everyone around to hear. His friends laughed, echoing the mock sweetness. Maya didn't answer. She slid her books into her bag and tried to move past, but Derek shifted with her, blocking the way. "Don't be cold. I brought you something." He held out a bruised banana, the kind of joke only his friends found funny. The laughter spread down the hallway, students glancing at her and then looking away quickly, as if afraid to be caught siding with the wrong person. Maya shut her locker and walked off, but she could feel Derek trailing her. By third period, he was waiting outside her classroom. By lunch, he was shadowing her steps across the cafeteria. The words grew sharper. "You know most girls would be grateful for my attention. Don't act like you're different. Everyone comes around." Every rejection fed his determination, every cold look made him louder. It was as if her resistance fueled his performance. Teachers walked past while Derek leaned too close, while his hand brushed her shoulder, while his friends boxed her in. None of them said a word. One even smiled tightly at Derek, murmuring something about practice after school, ignoring Maya completely. The message was clear, she was on her own. By the end of the week, she could feel the eyes everywhere. A group of girls at the back of class giggled whenever Derek whispered to her. A boy 2 seats over muttered, "Just give him a chance," under his breath. The atmosphere pressed down like a vice. It wasn't just Derek anymore. It was the silence of the crowd, the complicity of adults, the way laughter followed her like an echo. That afternoon she walked into the guidance office, determined to break the cycle. Mrs. Patterson, the school counselor, sat behind a cluttered desk, her pen scratching across a form. Maya stood straight, forcing her voice to stay calm. "I need to report harassment." The pen stopped but Mrs. Patterson didn't look up. "From who?" "Derek Mitchell. He's been following me. Making comments. Touching me when I tell him not to." Finally the counselor glanced up, her expression more annoyed than concerned. "Are you sure you're not misinterpreting? Derek's a good kid. Star athlete. His family's been a part of this community for years." Maya's pulse thudded in her ears. "He told me he could be my master. He follows me to my car. He grabs me when I say no." Mrs. Patterson sighed as if Maya were a child exaggerating a playground dispute. "Sometimes when we're new, we don't understand the social cues. Boys here can be forward. It's probably his way of being welcoming. Try to be more open-minded. Give him a chance." Maya stared, disbelief burning into anger. "Welcoming? He's harassing me." "I don't see it that way," the counselor said, already reaching for another form. "But I'll make a note. That's all we can do." Maya left the office sick to her stomach. She walked the hallways with the weight of realization pressing on her chest. The adults weren't going to save her. They were part of the system protecting Derek. The next day confirmed it. In history class Derek whispered just loud enough for others to hear. "You'd look good sitting on my lap." Snickers rippled through the row. The teacher droned on at the chalkboard, never turning. Later, when Maya snapped her book shut harder than she meant to, the same teacher gave her a warning look as if she were the disruption. After school she reached the parking lot, hoping to escape before Derek caught her. But he was already there, leaning against her mother's Honda like it was his own. His friends hovered a few feet back, smirking. Derek ran a hand along the hood, his tone mock casual. Nice ride. Little beat up, but it's got character. Like you. Maya stopped a few feet away. Get away from my car. Relax, he said, blocking the driver's door as she stepped closer. I'm not going to hurt it. Just admiring. You know, I could give you a ride in my Mustang. Much nicer than this thing. I don't need rides from you. Then what do you need? He leaned in, voice dropping. Money? I've got plenty. Protection? Outsiders can get hurt here. Accidents happen. Misunderstandings. But if you stick with me, nothing bad touches you. His grin widened at her silence, as if he had finally found the leverage that mattered. Maya's fists curled at her sides, nails biting into her palms. She wanted nothing more than to smash that grin off his face. Instead she forced her voice low. Move. Derek tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle he had already solved. Or what? You going to tell someone? Nobody's going to believe you. My dad sits on the board. 15 years. They'll believe me. Always have. He tapped the roof of her car like he was sealing a deal. Think about it. You don't want to be the kind of girl accidents happen to. The words hung heavy in the air, threat wrapped in a smile. Maya's hand hovered on the car door. Her knuckles whitened, every muscle in her arm taut with the urge to strike. She met his gaze, unflinching, eyes hard as stone. For the first time Derek hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty flashing across his smirk. Then he stepped aside, slow and deliberate, as if granting permission. See you tomorrow, sweetheart. Maya slid into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and gripped the wheel until her hands ached. Her heart pounded but her face stayed calm, her body still. She drove away without looking back, but inside, the decision had already been made. She wasn't broken. She wasn't trapped. She was waiting. And when the time came, Derek Mitchell would learn that every threat he threw at her had only sharpened the blade he never saw coming. Friday afternoon the parking lot pulsed with noise as students spilled out of the building, a tide of chatter and laughter, engines revving, doors slamming. It was the kind of restless energy that came with the weekend. Maya walked with her backpack slung low, head high, ready to escape the circus before Derek could find her. But he was already waiting, standing tall in the center of the lot with his crew spread like a stage behind him. His voice carried over the noise. There she is. My girl. The words turned heads, pulling attention like a magnet. Dozens of eyes followed Maya as she kept moving, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. Derek strutted toward her, each step deliberate, his grin too wide. Don't be shy. Everyone knows we've got something special. He closed the gap and with a sudden movement slapped her hard across the rear. The sound cracked through the lot like a starter's pistol. His friends roared with laughter. That's better, Derek sneered, proud of himself, basking in the spotlight. For a heartbeat Maya froze. Silence rippled outward as if the whole parking lot was waiting to see what she would do. Phones rose into the air, lenses pointed like weapons, capturing every angle. Derek's smirk widened. He had humiliated her in front of the whole school, and he expected her to shrink, to crumble, to be just another victim. Instead Maya turned slowly, her face calm, her eyes cold, her body still except for the tightening of her fists. Big mistake, she said quietly, the words slicing through the laughter. Before Derek could react her right hook shot forward, perfect in its precision. The impact cracked across his jaw, the sound sharp enough to make the crowd gasp. Derek's head snapped sideways, his legs buckled, and he collapsed to the asphalt like a puppet with its strings cut. The laughter died instantly. His friends stood stunned for half a second before rushing in. Tyler swung first, a wild punch meant to intimidate, but Maya ducked under it and drove her knee into his chest. Air exploded out of him as he folded to the ground. Connor tried to grab her arms from behind, but she spun free, slamming an elbow into his ribs that sent him staggering backward. Brad, smaller but quicker, darted forward and landed a glancing blow to her shoulder before her roundhouse kick caught him clean in the stomach, dropping him to his knees. 30 seconds. That was all it took. Four boys sprawled across the asphalt, groaning, clutching their bodies, their pride shattered. Maya stood over them, chest rising and falling, her face expressionless, her fists still clenched. The crowd erupted. Some screamed in shock, others cheered like they had just witnessed a title fight. Dozens of phones captured it all, every punch, every fall, the impossible sight of Westfield's untouchable bullies dismantled by a girl they thought was powerless. Security guards began sprinting across the lot, radios crackling. Maya didn't resist when they grabbed her arms, didn't speak when they pulled her back. She kept her eyes locked on Derek's limp body as he stirred, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. He had wanted a spectacle. She had given him one he would never forget. As students buzzed with disbelief, the first edited clips began flying across social media. Not the full 30 seconds. Just the final moment. Maya's fist connecting with Derek's face. Derek collapsing. No context, no harassment, no slap, no laughter. Just a single story crafted by the angles they chose to keep: Maya Johnson, violent transfer student, assaulting Westfield's golden boy. By the time she was led inside, Derek clutching his jaw and pretending to limp past the crowd, the narrative was already shifting. In the eyes of those who would never bother to ask what happened before the punch, Maya wasn't a survivor. She was a threat. And the war she hadn't wanted had just begun. The principal's office smelled faintly of old coffee and disinfectant, a place where rules were meant to feel heavy and final. Maya sat stiff in a plastic chair, her mother beside her, while Principal Anderson flipped through a thin stack of papers like the outcome had already been decided. He cleared his throat without looking up. 5 days suspension. Effective immediately. Maya's jaw tightened. Her mother leaned forward. What about the harassment? What about the video? Anderson finally looked at them, his expression carefully neutral. The video I reviewed begins with your daughter throwing the first punch. The rest is hearsay. Derek Mitchell is recovering from a concussion. His friend sustained injuries. Maya initiated physical violence. That is not negotiable. Maya's mother's voice rose, disbelief breaking through. There are multiple students with recordings. Anderson cut her off, his tone sharp. Those recordings have been removed from the school server. What remains is clear evidence of Maya striking Derek without provocation. This conversation is over. The silence on the walk home was worse than the suspension itself. By the time she logged into her phone that evening, the damage had spread. Edited clips were everywhere, Derek's friends spinning the story until it sounded like gospel. Headlines in group chats read, "Crazy new girl attacks Derek." Comments poured in, "Violent thug." Just another angry transfer. A meme of her punch replayed in slow motion with captions mocking her face. The humiliation burned sharper than the slap ever had. At school the next day, whispers trailed her even before she reached the parking lot. Students looked away when she passed, their eyes darting but their mouths silent, as if her presence were contagious. Friends she'd spoken to in class earlier that week now crossed the hall to avoid her. In the cafeteria a group of girls giggled loudly about how Derek had nearly died from her sucker punch, daring each other to look at Maya as she ate alone. The same silence that had trapped her before now turned into distance. She was no longer ignored, she was branded. That evening the Johnson family dinner table felt heavier than usual. Maya pushed food around her plate, appetite gone. Her mother, Lisa, sat across from her, worry etched into every line of her face. "I don't understand how they can do this," she said, voice tight. "They protect him and punish you." Maya barely lifted her eyes. Because his father sits on the school board. Because nobody cares what happens to me. Lisa reached across the table, her hand trembling slightly. Baby, you have to be careful. They'll use every excuse to throw you out. Maya wanted to argue, but the exhaustion pressed down too hard. Her father, Marcus, had been silent the whole meal, listening, his fork untouched. Finally he set it down, his voice calm but carrying weight. You did what you had to do. Lisa turned sharply toward him. Marcus, he held her gaze steady. No. She defended herself. When someone puts hands on you, after you've told them to stop, you have every right to fight back. He looked at Maya directly, his eyes steady. But understand this. Sometimes you have to fight the same battle twice before people believe you're serious. The words sank into the quiet, heavier than anything Maya had read online that day. Her chest tightened, not from despair but from the flicker of something she thought she'd lost, resolve. Lisa shook her head, torn between fear and frustration. Marcus leaned back, voice softer now. They want you broken, baby girl. That's how bullies win. You can't let them see that. Maya stared at her untouched dinner, her reflection wavering in the glass of water beside it. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to feel strong. But all she felt was the loneliness that came with walking into a battlefield with no allies. That night she sat on the edge of her bed, scrolling through post after post until the screen blurred. She nearly missed the small vibration of a new message. Unknown number. The text was simple, we need to talk. You're not the only one. She frowned, thumb hovering. Another message followed. It's Jake Santos. From your English class. Call me. Curiosity overrode exhaustion. She pressed dial, and after 2 rings a shaky voice answered. Maya, it's Jake. I know we don't really know each other, but I saw what happened. I've seen it before. He's done the same to me. She sat up straighter, pulse quickening. What do you mean? Jake's breath hitched on the other end. 2 years of this. Shoved into lockers, called names. Everyone looks away. Teachers, counselors, even the principal. Just like they're doing to you. But when you hit him, when you dropped him in front of everyone, I realized we don't have to stay quiet. Maya's throat tightened. She had spent the entire week convinced she was alone. Now, hearing the tremor in Jake's voice, she felt something shift. You're saying there are others? More than you think, Jake said, his voice growing firmer. People who've been waiting for someone to fight back. You're not alone, Maya. Not anymore. She sat in the dark, phone pressed to her ear, the sound of his words echoing in her chest. For the first time since the slap, since the laughter, since the humiliation replayed online, Maya felt the faintest spark of hope. It was fragile, small enough to be crushed with a single lie. But it was there. And it was enough to keep her breathing steady as she whispered back, then we fight together. The first meeting happened behind the gym, where the cracked concrete and peeling paint kept most students away. Maya didn't know why she'd agreed to come, only that Jake's voice on the phone had carried something she hadn't heard all week, conviction. When she arrived, Jake was already waiting with 2 others. One was a thin girl with short brown hair who looked like she hadn't slept in days. The other was a tall sophomore shifting nervously from foot to foot. Jake introduced them quietly, like they were trading secrets. This is Emma Rodriguez. This is Marcus Washington. They've both dealt with Derek. Emma spoke first, her voice small but steady. He cornered me in the bathroom last month with 2 of his friends. Told me if I told anyone, they'd make me regret it. I stopped drinking water during the day so I wouldn't have to use the restroom at school. Marcus clenched his fists, his voice low. They've been taking my lunch money since freshman year. Last week they shoved me into the trophy case and told everyone I was trying to steal something. Maya listened, her stomach twisting. She had thought her fight was hers alone, but their stories carried the same thread, fear smothered by silence. She wanted to dismiss it, to walk away, to keep her head down until suspension ended and she could transfer again. But something in their eyes stopped her. They weren't just asking for sympathy. They were asking for leadership. Over the next few days, more faces appeared. Ben Chen, quiet and bespectacled, admitted he'd been doing Derek's homework for 2 years under threat of being beaten. Another freshman confessed to skipping entire weeks of school because she couldn't take the constant harassment. Word spread in whispers, like smoke through hidden cracks, until a small circle formed behind the gym each afternoon. They didn't call themselves anything, but the way they gathered, the way they shared bruises and secrets, it felt like the beginning of a family. Maya resisted at first. "I'm not your savior," she told them. "I'm just someone who got tired of being touched." But each day they returned, waiting for her, eyes searching for something they couldn't name. Eventually she sighed and told them the truth. "My father taught me Muay Thai. 8 years. I can show you how to fight back. But understand this, you can't win by playing fair. Derek doesn't. Neither should you." That was when the training began. She showed Emma how to stay light on her feet, how to use speed instead of strength. She taught Marcus to turn his height into an advantage, to use leverage when someone grabbed him. She corrected Ben's trembling stance until his fists actually looked like fists. The sessions were clumsy at first, filled with nervous laughter and more mistakes than successes. But slowly, something shifted. Shoulders that had slumped for years began to straighten. Eyes that had darted toward the floor began to lift. The fear wasn't gone, but it was changing into something sharper, harder. Hope. Maya found herself caught between pride and dread. She hadn't asked to be anyone's leader, yet every correction, every demonstration, every bruise they earned while practicing carved her deeper into the role. Jake watched closely, his voice steady when he said, "You're not just teaching us how to fight. You're showing us how not to be afraid anymore." Across campus Derek noticed the difference. Students who once scattered at the sight of him now held his gaze for a second too long. Emma walked past him without flinching. Marcus didn't shrink when Derek brushed his shoulder. Even Ben, who had once practically run errands for him, avoided eye contact without the same trembling deference. Derek felt it immediately, the crack in his armor of fear. One afternoon he leaned against the lockers with Tyler and Connor, watching the hallway with narrowed eyes. "Something's going on," he muttered. "They're acting different." Tyler shrugged. "Maybe they're just getting used to you being back." But Derek knew better. Fear was fragile, and once it broke it spread faster than intimidation. He clenched his jaw. "Then we remind them who runs this place." That Friday the group met not behind the gym but in an abandoned maintenance shed near the football field. It smelled of rust and dust, broken equipment scattered across the floor, but it offered privacy. More than 20 students crammed inside, some standing, some sitting on overturned crates. Maya looked around, startled at how quickly the numbers had grown. She could feel the weight of their eyes pressing on her. She cleared her throat, her voice carrying in the cramped space. "I'm not going to lie. This isn't going to be easy. Derek will come harder now. The school won't help us. But we help each other. We don't start fights. We finish them. When they corner one of us, we don't run. We stand together." The shed was silent except for the creak of old wood as the students shifted, nerves battling with determination. Maya stepped closer, her gaze sweeping across them. "Listen to me. We're not here to play heroes. We're here because we're tired of being victims. Derek and his friends picked the wrong people this time. We're not scared anymore. And we're not alone." She paused, letting the words settle, then said the line that would echo long after that night. "We don't start the fight. But we will end it, together." The words lit something in the room. Heads lifted. Shoulders squared. For the first time, Maya saw more than bruised kids hiding in the shadows. She saw fighters ready to reclaim what had been stolen from them. Outside, the night air pressed cold against the shed walls. Derek Mitchell was already planning his next move, certain he still owned Westfield. But for the first time, Maya Johnson wasn't the only one waiting. An army was forming in the silence, and its heartbeat was louder than fear. Monday morning carried the weight of a storm that everyone could feel but no one could name. Whispers moved faster than the bell, rumors of Derek's new recruits, rumors of Maya's secret training, rumors of a showdown that had been inevitable since the first slap in the parking lot. The hallways of Westfield buzzed like a live wire, students pressing close to walls, eyes darting, waiting for the spark that would ignite it all. The spark came at 9:30, between first and second period, when Derek's football recruits cornered 3 freshmen near the trophy case. Their laughter was too loud, their jeers too cruel, and it drew attention like blood in the water. Sarah Kim shouted from across the hallway, her voice cracking the tension. "Get off them!" In an instant the air snapped. Maya's group surged forward, not scattering but converging, every face hard with the decision they had already made. Derek's side moved to meet them, and the hallway erupted. Fists slammed against lockers, bodies crashed to the floor, textbooks flew through the air. Screams mixed with cheers as students pulled out their phones, filming the chaos like it was a prize fight. The building became a battlefield. Maya fought through the crush, her eyes scanning for Derek, her body moving on instinct. She dropped one linebacker with a kick to the knee, shoved another into the glass of the trophy case, shards exploding like fireworks. Water began to rain down as the fire alarm blared, sprinklers activated by the sensors. In seconds the hallway floor was slick, reflections of red exit lights dancing on the puddles as the fight raged on. Maya found Derek through the chaos. He was pushing through his own crowd, drenched, eyes wild, jaw set. Their eyes locked across the flooded hallway, and the noise around them seemed to fade. "This ends now," he shouted, his voice ragged. Maya didn't flinch. "Fine by me." They collided in the center of the chaos, water splashing around their legs. Derek threw a wild punch, but exhaustion and anger made him sloppy. Maya ducked, driving a jab into his ribs. He grunted, tried to tackle her, but she rolled, her elbow slamming into his side. He staggered but came again, desperation in every move. Around them, students slowed to watch, the riot shrinking into a ring. Phones tilted forward, capturing every second. Derek lunged again, wrapping his arms around her waist, slamming her into the water. For a heartbeat she was pinned, her mouth filling with the taste of metal and chlorine as panic clawed at her chest. But she twisted, her elbow smashing into his kidney, forcing him to release. She rose coughing, her hair plastered to her face, her eye swollen from a stray hit, but her stance unbroken. "It's not your school," she spat, circling him. "It's not your kingdom. You're just another bully." Derek charged, but she sidestepped, using his own weight to send him crashing into a bank of lockers. The impact echoed, and he slumped forward, bleeding from his nose, barely able to stand. Maya struck again, her fist connecting with his jaw, the same place she had hit him weeks before. This time he stayed down, water rippling around his motionless body. Sirens wailed outside as the sound of boots pounded into the building. Police officers in riot gear poured into the hallway, shouting commands, dragging students apart, forcing them to the ground. Maya barely had time to register victory before 2 officers grabbed her arms, snapping cold handcuffs around her wrists. "Step away from the victim," one barked, hauling her up. She twisted to look back at Derek lying on the ground, blood pooling in the water, his father Robert Mitchell already striding through the doors with untouched shoes and a face that screamed satisfaction. "That's her," Robert told the officers, pointing directly at Maya. "That's the gang leader who started all this." Phones kept filming, students shouted in protest, but the cuffs stayed locked. Maya was marched through the wreckage, water dripping from the ceiling, broken glass crunching beneath boots. She lifted her head high, refusing to look broken, but inside her chest burned with the thought that maybe Derek had finally won. Outside, news vans had already arrived, cameras rolling as she was led into a squad car. Her mother screamed her name, pushing against the crowd, while her father's voice cut through the noise. "Don't say a word, Maya. We'll fight this." His face was set like stone, but his eyes carried pride, not shame. Maya was shoved into the car, the door slamming shut, her swollen eye catching the sight of Jake sprinting forward, waving his phone. "We've got everything," he shouted. "The whole fight. Him throwing the first punch. All of it." The officers pushed him back, but the words stuck with her. Proof. She wasn't alone. 3 weeks later the courthouse was packed. Protesters lined the steps with signs reading "Justice for Maya." Inside, Judge Martinez presided over a courtroom buzzing with reporters, students, parents, the entire town holding its breath. The prosecutor painted her as a violent instigator, a criminal who had turned Westfield High into a war zone. Principal Anderson testified that Maya was disruptive from day one, his voice tight with discomfort. But when David Chen, Ben's older brother and her lawyer, began the defense, the tone shifted. He held up a thick folder. 17 formal complaints against Derek Mitchell ignored by this school. Witnesses silenced. Videos deleted. A system designed to protect a bully because of his last name. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The real blow came when Jake Santos took the stand, his voice trembling but steadying as he spoke. "I found the deleted files. Videos Derek thought were gone. They show him planning, bragging, admitting his father would protect him. He wasn't the victim. He was the predator." Screens lit up with Derek's own face, his own voice, sneering about breaking girls, about how the school board would always back him. Robert Mitchell's face went pale in the front row. Still, Derek was called to testify. Coached, careful at first, he tried to act the victim. But under pressure, his arrogance broke through. "She needed to learn respect," he snapped when pressed about slapping Maya in the lot. "Girls like her think they can just," he stopped too late. David's voice cut like a blade. "Girls like her? You mean black girls? You mean the students you targeted for years because you thought you could get away with it?" Derek sputtered, his face red, his words unraveling. "Some people matter and some people don't. That's the way the world works." The courtroom erupted, gasps and shouts echoing. Judge Martinez's gavel slammed for silence, her face stern. "I've heard enough." Her ruling was swift and decisive. All charges against Maya Johnson are dismissed. The evidence shows she was defending herself and others from a pattern of abuse. Derek Mitchell will face charges for assault, harassment, and conspiracy. An investigation into Westfield High's administration will begin immediately. Cheers thundered through the room. Maya felt her mother's arms wrap around her, her father's hand steady on her shoulder, tears cutting through the exhaustion. Reporters shouted questions, students sobbed with relief, and for the first time in months, she felt the weight lift. Outside, chants echoed through the courthouse steps. Her name wasn't whispered anymore. It was shouted with pride. 6 months later Westfield looked different. New posters lined the halls, hotlines for reporting bullying, teachers trained to listen instead of dismiss. Principal Anderson was gone, replaced by Coach Rivera, who greeted Maya with a nod of respect each morning. Jake had become student body president. Emma had started a peer counseling program. Ben was on the debate team. And Derek Mitchell was in juvenile detention, his father stripped of his power, their empire crumbling. On graduation day Maya stood at the podium, the tassel swinging gently from her cap, looking out at classmates who no longer walked with heads bowed. "I didn't come here to start a movement," she told them, her voice steady but full. "I just wanted to survive. But sometimes life doesn't give you the choice to stay quiet. Sometimes doing the right thing means fighting the same battle twice." And sometimes it means fighting until no one else has to. The applause was thunderous. Cameras flashed, families cheered, and Maya walked across the stage knowing the war was over but the work had just begun. As she held her diploma, she thought of the girl she had been that first day in the parking lot, and the girl she had become. She had not chosen this path, but she had walked it. And now, every step ahead belonged to her.